Good evening, I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad, Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider the news of the day. Let's begin with the Attorney General's Chamber's decision not to prefer charges against the men in the series of sex videos that emerged last June on social media. Now, Attorney General Tommy Thomas says this is because of investigators' inability to positively identify the men in the sex video through facial recognition analysis. Economics Affairs Minister Azmin Ali has come out to say that he feels vindicated by the decision and that no one should be subjected to gutter politics. But has closure been achieved in this case, Sharaad?
Well, Melissa, of course, you know, closure is something that we all wish for. I mean, at least right-thinking Malaysians wish for in terms of the development of Malaysian politics, the democratic politics in particular. But what exactly would it take for us not to have a continuance to this? You already see some in PKR, Azmin Ali's party, are saying this, they welcome this decision, saying, you know, that it shouldn't carry on forward. But some are saying, well, this investigation shouldn't stop. So even within his own party,
right,
the principle of refusing to engage in gutter politics isn't something that they've taken home or internalized.
Well, this feels like, you know, it's a historical case, the problem of gutter politics in Malaysia, and I don't think we're going to be seeing the end of it. I completely agree with anyone that there is no place for gutter politics in Malaysia Baru, and yet we still see the same issues come up, you know, being cyclical, and it won't go away because we have laws in Malaysia that criminalize private morality.
Yeah, so the idea of private morality, I think, Melissa, is very not well understood in Malaysia. The idea that, you know, when there are things between consenting adults that are really not the business of the police or the state or even religious authorities. And so that idea is not well enshrined. And because of that, people are vulnerable to being blackmailed. We have, in the instance of the Azmin Ali alleged sex tapes, something that came out in public. But what if, Melissa, what if there was an attempt to blackmail him, but privately?
Right.
Now, that's something that could be quite detrimental to national security,
Agreed,
government policy, all kinds of things. That needs to be also understood.
But it's not just legislation, right, Sharaad? I mean, it could also be cultural in this context. I mean, there are a lot of plenty out there who have reservations about the private lives of our politicians. They feel that, you know, they require a certain level of purity when it comes to those in public office.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know if democracies are very good at choosing saints as political leaders.
Historically, no.
Not historically. And I think it's probably very dangerous to have people who, you know, wear their religious affiliations or purity and observances on their sleeves, because, you know, for me, that is not a mark of, you know, the ability to lead in the public interest. I mean, that's just your personal morality.
Definitely.
Now, that is something that I think Malaysians will have to kind of grapple with over the next coming years.
All right, let's move on to other news. The police are conducting an internal investigation to identify the officer who allegedly advised a school in Puchong to take down its Chinese New Year decorations. Now, all this became an issue after a Malay political party said it was unconstitutional and an attempt to propagate a religion to students, following which a police officer allegedly advised the school to remove the decorations to avoid further controversy. Now, this has been a bit of a storm in a teacup, but one that is quite a powder keg in our quite sensitive society.
Well, I mean, I think it's, you know, a lot of things have happened since, you know, the elections in 2018. I mean, this ratcheting up of ethno-nationalist sentiment, the desire to create cleavages and divisions at every turn, to see a conspiracy of one community against the other in things that might seem quite innocuous, in this case, decorations. Now, Putra is really just the latest incarnation of Perkasa, which perhaps, you know, for some, champion the rights of the Malay majority community by making politics around these differences, right? So, yeah, constantly asserting a majoritarian logic in their politics and their speeches.
Well, Sharaad, let's take a look at this specific angle, right? The fact that police are now conducting an internal investigation into this one officer who allegedly advised the school to take down the decorations. Now, the question is, there were reports that were submitted to the police to say that this is unconstitutional. You know, they saw this and this is not. Whoever who made the report said that this is not right. Now, the question is, how should police respond to situations like this? They're doing their duties by going and investigating such reports, but should they have then advised the school to take down the decorations? Perhaps, to be in all generosity of spirit, perhaps they were just trying to avoid further controversy in doing so, but then at the same time had, created even more of a controversy by advising the school to take down those decorations.
Yeah, it seems to me, Melissa, that the police sometimes acting on this idea that their responsibility is to
keep the peace, right?
Keep the peace, but they actually have to uphold the law. I think that's actually the primary duty. Now, you can take a police report, and if the claim made in a police report is tendentious, it's based on a flimsy accusation, you don't have to pursue it. And the question for Malaysia today is whether our institutions can act in a professional, unbiased, unselective way in the face of pressures, especially coming, and I think almost entirely coming from right-wing ideologues. They are putting pressure on our institutions to act in as professional way as possible. We'll see in the coming years whether they will succumb to this pressure to act, in tandem with right-wing voices, or will act in a neutral fashion.
Well, okay, so that was the police's response to this controversy, to this situation like this. I have to say the government's response to this was positive. I think it was the right response. A cabinet delegation led by the Deputy Prime Minister, Dr. Wan Azizah Wan Ismail, showing support to the school, and they brought even more lanterns. And I think that did a lot to temper what could have been, as I said earlier, a very contentious situation. It was the right move.
Yeah, it was right. The politicians did right this time, I think, Melissa. The question is, at least politicians from the ruling government did right. The question really is the children. And I think about the children who had to witness this entire controversy, terrorized by the fact that something as innocuous as Chinese decorations, and this is not just for the Chinese kids, but any kid, that this could become a hot issue, that the police would, descend on your school because of decorations. And what does it say about inclusivity? Is this a Malaysia that those kids want to grow up in? Is this a Malaysia that these kids are going to think they have a future in? That actually is the long-term damage that groups like Putra create for our country as we struggle with so many issues, real issues, especially on the front of talent and retaining talent in this country.
Well said. Now we're going to take a quick break, and after this, we're going to take a closer look at the upcoming Taiwan elections. So stay tuned to consider this.